And here is the packaging for 3A Judge Dredd, and I was not expecting this at all. I love this packaging. Nice black and white artwork of Dredd on the back, on a massive backing card, and a little tiny blister with the figure held inside. The backing card is nice and thick, as you can see from the side view, so it's very sturdy. And on the back you've got another black and white art of Dredd with 2000 AD. And let's have a closer look at the blister holding Dredd. Very nice here. You can see on the back there is another tray that holds all the weapons and accessories. Man, I really don't want to ruin this packaging. It's just so beautiful. But I will. Okay, here goes. And here are the accessories that comes with Judge Dredd. So out of the packaging, he comes with the open palm relaxed hands. So packed with the figure, he comes with a pair of close-fisted hands for punching. He comes with a pair of weapon holding hands, both left and right. And he comes with a pair of, I assume is the nightstick holding hands for both left and right. And they're very well painted. They've been given a black wash to bring out the details in each of them, so that's really nice. And he comes with his nightstick. Unfortunately, he doesn't have anywhere on the figure to store the nightstick, so that's a bit of a shame. And he comes with his lawgiver, Mk1, which looks quite nice. Very nicely detailed, very old school design to it. And he comes with the lawgiver Mk2, I assume, and this gun looks really nice. Very lovely paint details, you can see there, some gold, some red, very nicely molded. And with the Mk1 you can actually holster it inside Judge Dredd's leg holster, and it fits in there beautifully. Now with the changing of the hand, I have found it a little bit tricky. I'll show you why. So the hands are on ball joints, so you pull them out. They seem a little bit tight, and I am a little bit worried about that joint. But let's put a weapon holding hand on. But before I do that, I gotta show you this. So this gauntlet here, it's basically a slip-on, and so is this shoulder armor bit. Sorry, not shoulder armor, elbow armor bit. The problem is when you try to push another hand on, I mean, I tend to grab it here and try to force it on, but doing so will kind of cause you to pull this bit down rather than the figure. And you're also kind of stretching the material at the same time, so yeah, I don't really feel comfortable changing these hands over too much. So now I have to kind of put a finger up there to support his whole arm when I push the hand in, because it is kind of tight. But it goes on well, and let's put his lawgiver in his hand, and it holds the weapon not too bad. It is a little bit on the loose side, but once you get it in there, it sits okay on display. Now for a closer look at the figure. Starting off from the top of the figure, I really like this face sculpt. He's got this signature Dredd kind of grumpy face going on, which is really cool. You can't really see his eyes through the visor because it is really dark, and I'm not even sure if it's sculpted and painted down in there. But as far as the helmet goes, it looks really good. And he's got the shoulder pads. This one kind of sits quite high. I'm not sure if you can actually adjust it, but it sits really close to his face. But it is really nicely painted. You can see there's a bit of weathering going on there. And also on this side, his eagle, very nicely weathered, very nicely sculpted. And of course he's got a zip down the front, which you can unzip. to show you a little bit more detail inside. So he has sculpted chest inside, and it looks a bit dirty. I think they've tried to give it a wash, but it just came out looking a little bit dirty. And his badge sitting there, it's stitched onto the costume. And then coming down to his belt, very nicely designed, very nicely sculpted and painted. It's got heaps of pouches running all the way around, which is nice. And all of these, the knee pad and the shoulder pad, they're kind of just sitting there, so they can be a little bit loose and tend to slide up and down when you handle the figure. So that's that can get a little bit annoying. But on the other hand, very nicely painted, black wash over this really rich dark green color. Very nicely molded as well. And the holster for the Lawgiver MK1 is actually soft, so it does bend and stuff like that. Overall, I think the proportions of the figure is a little bit on the thin and lanky side. I'm not sure if that's how he was portrayed in the manga, because I don't really read the manga, but from what I know from the movies, he's supposed to be a tough dude, so he does look a little bit on the thin side for me. And now for a quick comparison between the Mezco 112 Collective version and the 3A version. So as you can see straight off the bat, the 112 Collective version does have a little bit more bulk to him, and he also stands a little bit taller than the 3A version. Both have their pros and cons, so I'll go through those quickly. First up, I do prefer the face or head sculpt of the 3A version, because the Mezco one seems kind of long, but it's also quite a nice head sculpt. And I do prefer the Mezco one having the detachable magnetized armor bits, so you can actually take them out of the way when you're trying to do some poses, whereas this one is kind of stuck on there, but they are pegged in with a ball peg, so you can actually detach them, but not as easily as the magnetized version. And I do like the gold on this one more so than the yellow, and also the fact that the Dredd badge is stitched in on this means that it doesn't have the same problem as the Mezco one, where it kind of can rotate and get all ugly and tangled with the chain. And the chain on the Mezco one looks a little bit too clean for my liking. I do like this golden color a little bit more. The suit material, I probably prefer the Mezco one a little bit more. The 3A one feels like it's like a rubberized material, but I feel like it's a little bit thinner and it might break more easily. But I'm not sure. I mean, unless I do a test on both of them and stretch it out, I can't say for sure which one is stronger. But I do like the Mezco version, where it's sort of like a leathery look. And the Mezco one also has storage for the baton, and he also comes with extra accessories like grenades and stuff like that, whereas the Mezco 3A one doesn't. And the Mezco one also has holster for the gun, same as the 3A, and it has a holster and a knife on the other side. So that's a bit of a bonus for Mezco. In terms of paint color on the green, the Mezco one is a little bit more realistic. It's got nice textures on it, whereas the 3A one's a bit more gummy and flat. Overall, I think I prefer the Mezco just that slightly bit more. And moving on to articulation. He can look up that far and look down that far. So he's got a neck joint here, which allows his head to go back and forth, as well as a ball joint for the head. And he can tilt from side to side, so that's quite good, and all the way around. Not bad at all. For his shoulders, he can lift up his arms that high, down to there. He has, does he have butterfly? tiny bit. You can see his arm going back and forth a little bit, and he's got bicep swivel, but you don't want to turn it too much because the fabric will stretch. For his elbows, he's got, I think he's got a double jointed elbow. Yep, and it gives him about 90-degree bend. And for the wrist, it's just a ball peg, so he can do rotation and a bit of in and out and up and down and things like that. And for his body, he can crunch forward that far and back about that far, and there is side to side as well. And he's got rotation there on the body as well, but again, you don't want to push it too far, it will stretch the fabric. And for his legs, he can stretch about that far, but I can see the fabric already starting to stretch, so I'm not going to push it further. I think the joints can probably go a little bit further. And then for front kicking, that far forward and backwards, actually he can't really kick backwards, so that's as far as back as he can go. And he's got thigh rotation and double jointed knee. Could be double joint, but because of that knee pad, he gets stuck at about 90 degrees. There's no rotation at the top of the boots. This is actually just a slip cover that goes onto his leg, much like the wrist slip cover. But he does have rotation. I think it's a ball joint down here, so his feet can go all the way around. He can point his feet down that far, up that far, and it does actually give him a pretty good ankle rocker as well. And in terms of height, he comes in at just under 16 centimeters, which is about 6.2 inches. And now for some size comparisons. Here he is with Mezco 112 Collective Judge Dredd, SS Figuarts Son Goku, DC Icons Superman, and lastly Marvel Legends Cyclops. I do like my Judge Dredd figures. I don't read the comics, but I do like the movies, which have both been really good. Okay, his hand peg just came out, which is not great. This guy is, he does look really good, but there are several annoyances with this figure. For example, changing of the hands can be a little bit tricky. But once you do get it in, it's okay. He does look a little bit lanky and thin for my personal preference, but if that's how he was portrayed in the comics, then I think it's great. Let me just put the Lawgiver MK1 in, and it doesn't really, he doesn't really hold his weapons that well. So you have to really adjust it, put his finger through the trigger area to have him hold it properly. And it's cool that he comes with two guns, but he's only got a holster for one of them. If you're a Judge Dredd fan, definitely pick him up. He is cheaper than the Mezco version, but I have to say, in all honesty, if I had to choose between the two and only get one, I would probably go with the Mezco version. I think they've got their quality and their execution much more sorted than 3A in terms of these 1/12 scale fabric clothing figures. That pretty much sums up my review. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and please don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time for another toy review.